Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Today, I would like to talk to you about stress. It's something we all have in our lives and we can't avoid. So, we need to start finding ways to manage it and really understanding why that's so important and how we can get it into our lives. So let's first start by talking about our nervous systems. We have two different nervous systems in our body. We have the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic nervous system is our fight and flight system. That's the system that our ancestors used when they felt like they needed to run for their life from a lion. You want your blood to go to your limbs. You want your heart rate to increase. You want to be able to get away from that lion. But then, after the attack is over, after the threat, you want to be able to come back to that parasympathetic nervous system. That's our rest and digest. We are intended to live in the parasympathetic nervous system. When you're under periods of stress, the intention is for our body to release hormones that kick you into overdrive. They'll send the blood, I said, to your limbs, right to your heart. It will be racing. It will do all the things that it needs to do to get that fight or flight state in order for you to get away from the lion. And then you'll come back into the rest and digest place. The problem is that in our society, many people are just living in the sympathetic state. We're not bouncing into it and then back. We're just kind of hanging out over there in the sympathetic nervous system. And I see this all the time. We're always under stress. We have endless to-do lists. We have things that we need to get done. And sometimes our bodies are even under this biological stress from inflammation and the things that we're eating. And it's just bombarding us all the time. And that's when it can lead to problems. The other thing I want to clarify that I just mentioned is that stress doesn't just come from emotional stress. Although we can feel that stress regularly, you may be someone who thinks, I handle my stress, I do self care, and that doesn't apply to me. But that's not always true. It's not always just about emotional stress. There are also components from physical stress, which would sometimes happen when we have things like tension in our bodies in certain places. That can even be a strain or a break or an injury that's causing some type of physical stress. You can have biological stress, which would come from infections like dysbiosis in your gut. It can come from elevated blood sugar, hormonal imbalances. Imbalances in your body also affect your cortisol and can cause your body to feel a stress response. You can also have stresses in your body from psychological stresses that have come from past trauma or other experiences in your life that you haven't been able to let go. So it's just not just about the to-do list or about what you have going on right now, but it's also about getting yourself in a place where your body is really calm. We need to focus on that. We need to say, your body feels calm, your body feels relaxed, and you're able to sustain this rest and digest place. And that's particularly important at meal times, actually, because we really need to digest our food in a way that's best absorbed to get the nutrients in us that we need in our body. So the next thing I want to talk to you is just a little bit about cortisol. Cortisol is your stress hormone. When your body goes into that stress response, you're first going to release adrenaline and norepinephrine. But then after that comes our stress hormone, cortisol. Your cortisol has a pattern. It works in a diurnal rhythm. It's supposed to go up right in the morning, first thing when you get up, so that you get that energy you need for the day. And then it actually is supposed to go down. It goes down through the late afternoon and evening, causing that time for you to feel more relaxed, feel more rested, ready to go to bed. And it's supposed to be rock bottom at night. Melatonin, then, when cortisol levels are low, actually increases. And we need the melatonin in our body to increase at night to really get the nourishing and the rejuvenation we need for the next day. However, sometimes when our cortisol does not go down the whole way at night, we're not able to get the melatonin we need to really get good sleep. Melatonin, let's call that our sleep hormone, and cortisol, our awake hormone, really need to be inverse with each other. And what happens is when that imbalance comes off, we have this place where we're really not getting the rest we need. We're really having too much of this cortisol, and we're living in this sympathetic nervous system all the time. You're not able to come back down into that relaxed state, and your cortisol levels get really high. When this happens, you can feel really like tired and wired at the same time. And you can have other health problems that start too from those high levels of cortisol. Cortisol is not a bad thing. It is supposed to stimulate us. We are supposed to have that response. If we didn't have cortisol, we wouldn't be able to run for our life. The problem happens when it gets sustained for long periods of time. When cortisol remains high and you end up staying stressed out for a long time, then what actually happens is that your cortisol levels go down. You get what we call adrenal fatigue, and it can start to really be like a flat line. And when that happens, we start to feel things like really exhausted all the time. You feel like you just don't have the energy to do anything. Exercise may be the only time of day when you feel like you really have energy, because when you're exercising, you get a release of adrenaline, which can bring you back up, but then you just get exhausted again. So we really want to start to look at these patterns. We want to see, are you able to get yourself back into the parasympathetic nervous system? Are you having these high spikes of cortisol where you're feeling tired and wired at the same time, where you're just never able to really calm down? You just feel this like anxious, exhausted place. Are you really to the point now where you're just flat, you're exhausted, you feel like, okay, it's a struggle to do anything? These are signs that you need to really balance your cortisol and work on your stress hormones. We can even make it more complicated and see things like headaches or pain, because we can get in this stress pain cycle. We can have this underlying, like I said, dysbiosis that's causing our body stress. So there's other things that can be going on, but these are some of the symptoms that you can start to look at. And in my practice, what I do is we test. We want to really test your cortisol levels to see if they're too high or too low, because we do treat those different. We use things like adaptogens to balance cortisol levels, but sometimes we need to use the ones that really bring you up a little bit more. And sometimes we need to use things that are more calming. And that's why the testing can be important, because if you are too high, you don't want to necessarily want to bring yourself up. And if you are too low, you don't want to take anything that's going to lower you. So when we really want to look at that and dial in, it can be very helpful to get that testing so we can see where you are. And then we can actually do targeted treatment to get you back and nourish the way you need to feel better. But as always, what can you do right now? So before we even get into supplements, things you can do right now is really decrease the stress load on your body. The first thing you can do, which seems really simple, but is often more difficult than it sounds, especially for people with little children who wake up a lot at night, is get a good night's sleep. When I'm telling you about melatonin and cortisol levels, we need you to sleep to get the melatonin up and get your stress hormones down at night, to really get the body nourished and those stress hormones down. Some of the things you can do to get a good night's sleep are just simple things like turning off full spectrum light before bed. You want to try to do that really a complete 1 to 2 hours before bed. It's hard to do, but maybe putting your phone in the other room so that you can't see it at night. If you can calm your mind down, you don't want to be doing any stimulating work or planning. Sometimes that's something I struggle with. If I don't get enough done during the day, I'll try to get it done at night. And I have to check myself, because you're thinking, you're really engaged, you're really working your mind. And then sometimes it's really hard to just calm down quickly. You don't want to do anything that's really going to excite you. You can try a calming bedtime routine. A nice one is actually Epsom salt baths, because magnesium is actually a calming mineral. So sometimes doing an Epsom salt bath will be relaxing, and the magnesium is also calming to your body to prepare for sleep. We don't want to be go, 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 and then just shut down. We're not ready to just shut off. So we need to get that bedtime ritual in so that we can get the optimal sleep. Another thing you can do is keep your bedroom cool, dark, and quiet. Getting a fan in your room can be a good idea, because it can actually keep the room cool and create that steady background noise. Sometimes white noise machines can be helpful. Sometimes earplugs if you sleep with someone who snores. You want to use potentially a sleep mask, room darkening shades, anything that really creates this optimal environment for sleep. Even the lights on sometimes, like the TV or the alarm clock or things like that, those can be stimulating. So you want this ideal environment where it's cool, dark, and quiet, and you can have the optimal ability to sleep. We want to do everything to make sure that melatonin is rising, make sure that cortisol is dropping down, and give your body the chance it needs to sleep. You can also make sure that you don't eat caffeine after 2 p.m. I see this sometimes with people who will think, oh, I'm done. I'm fine with coffee. I'm fine with things at night. But then they try to avoid it. And it makes such a huge difference with their ability to fall and stay asleep. I had one particular woman that I remember that had so much trouble falling asleep and we couldn't figure it out. And she said, I know I don't drink any caffeinated beverages. I just, I can't get settled. And when we really dove in, she was actually eating dark chocolate after dinner. And real dark chocolate has caffeine. And she was a slow metabolizer. Everybody metabolizes caffeine differently. So you could be a slow or a fast metabolizer of caffeine. And so we really want to look at that. How do you metabolize your caffeine? And is it going to affect you? So even something like a piece of chocolate after dinner could be something that's keeping you up and really blocking your ability to have a good night's sleep. Another thing you can do is calm your digestion down by limiting foods 3 hours before bedtime. Actually, when you're digesting foods, it can interfere with your sleep and your quality of sleep. So if you can just limit your food 2 to 3 hours before bed, it can make a big difference in your ability to sleep. It's also important to do self-care tips. Meditation is something that resonates with me. I found it so calming. I've done a lot of meditation trainings and really been able to calm my mind and bring myself back into that place where I can be in the parasympathetic. And once that you can do that, then you can actually use it and bring it into your life in other ways. I've seen it work for so many of my patients where once you're able to practice meditation, once you're able to calm your mind, you're able to separate yourself from your thoughts, you're able to then bring it back when you're stressed out. And because you have that practice of separating from your thoughts so that then whenever the stressful thoughts come in, you can really block them out and really go to that place to get yourself calmed down. But sometimes people struggle with meditation and it's not the only way. There's so many different ways, and just deep breathing, taking deep breaths, breathe into your belly, breathe in your chest, exhale. Think of it like a circular pattern. You can do box breathing where you can count to 4, inhale, hold, count out for 4. That can be so helpful. We know that our breath actually is the key to bringing us back into the parasympathetic. Physiologically, it can do that. You just have to practice. You have to build that muscle. So when you're at the point of being stressed, you're able to do it. You have that practice. You have the tools. Yoga is another thing that works for a lot of people. It's really getting that exercise and movement with the breath work that can make a big difference. And everybody resonates with something different. Some people like to do gratitude journaling. You can go for a walk in nature. You can go forest bathing, actually. Some people like to dance. Some people like to sing. You just want to do whatever works well for you to bring your body back into that parasympathetic nervous system. I always recommend just finding something that you can do consistently every day and get it into your routine. It's more important to have it in your routine to build the muscle to get your body calmed down than it is to do for a long period. So that's why breath work can be great, because you can do that for a few minutes a day. You can set your alarm for 2 minutes, 3 times a day, and just sit there, shut your eyes, get to a calm place and breathe. So it's a place that's very easy to get started. We all have a few minutes we can take. I know we're all busy, but you can take a few minutes out of your day. When you're doing it consistently, when you're actually practicing that breath, you can really see dramatic results. So I want to challenge you to find something and practice it that brings you back in the parasympathetic. Even doing something for yourself every day. Do one thing just for you that's for no one else, that you enjoy, that's relaxing, that's calming, even if it's just sitting and having a cup of tea and just staring out the window, just something that brings you back in that calm place. We want to really be mindful to do so. So I hope these tips have resonated with you, and thank you so much for listening. Have a great day.